Imagine looking at your website analytics dashboard and seeing 0 visitors for the entire month, just a flat line.
Right, which is terrifying.
Completely terrifying, right. But then imagine finding out that despite those 0 clicks, your business was actually recommended to like 2 million people yesterday and your sales are up 20%.
Yeah, that is the exact paradox we are looking at.
It's wild. But welcome to the reality of the internet on June 26, 2026. For this deep dive, we are opening up the monumental SEO Daily Technology Report compiled for this exact date, June 26, 2026, to understand why clicks are basically dead.
And why that might actually be the best thing to ever happen to your business.
Right, provided you understand the new rules of the game. Because if you don't, you are invisible.
Literally invisible. That disconnect between traffic and visibility, I mean, that is the defining characteristic of the web on June 26, 2026. We're looking at a digital ecosystem where the foundational transaction of the internet, a user searching for a keyword, seeing a list of links, and then clicking one, that is rapidly becoming a relic of the past.
It's gone.
Yeah, the architecture has shifted fundamentally.
So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack this specific June 26, 2026 report and figure out the nuts and bolts of this shift. Because whether you are a marketer, a business owner, or just a curious learner trying not to drown in information overload, you need a cheat sheet for this.
You absolutely do.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand where we are on June 26, 2026, I feel like we need to briefly talk about how search engines used to work versus what they are actually doing right now. It's not just a UI change.
No, not at all.
It's a completely different way of processing human language, isn't it?
Absolutely. So for decades, search engines relied primarily on lexical search.
Lexical search.
Yeah, which is basically just a fancy way of saying keyword matching. Like if you searched for, say, affordable red running shoes, the engine literally just scanned its massive index for pages containing those exact words. Affordable, red, running, shoes.
Like a giant filing cabinet.
Exactly. Hyperfast filing cabinet.
Okay.
But the generative AI models dominating search on June 26, 2026, they use semantic or vector search.
Right.
They don't look for matching words anymore. They translate human language into numbers, and then they plot them in this multidimensional mathematical space to find concepts that are related by context, even if they don't share a single identical word.
So it's the difference between asking a librarian to find a book with the word apple in the title versus asking a nutritionist to explain the concept of a healthy fruit.
That is a great way to look at it. The nutritionist understands the actual meaning behind the request, not just the vocabulary you use.
And that underlying shift to semantic understanding, that is what made Google's AI overviews possible in the first place.
Right. Which brings us to the first massive data point in this June 2026 report.
Oh, yeah, this blew my mind.
It's staggering. AI mode, which, was introduced back in 2025, has officially hit 75 million users as of June 26, 2026.
75 million. That is just, the report says that's 4x growth, right?
Yeah. Yep. 4x growth, which is astronomical. But here is the bombshell statistic that really sets the stage for everything else we're going to talk about today.
Weigh it on us.
According to this data, 75% of AI mode sessions now end in a zero-click scenario.
Okay, wait. Let that sink in for the listener. 75%.
3 out of 4 times someone asks a question, the generative engine synthesizes an answer so completely, so perfectly, that the user just reads it and never clicks through to the underlying websites.
The websites that actually provided the source material.
Exactly. Zero-click is the new default. And what the report illustrates is how this is completely fracturing user behavior based on, the hardware they happen to be holding.
Right. The device breakdown in the report is fascinating because if you dig into the analytics for June 26, 2026, desktop click-through rates are actually climbing significantly right now.
Which nobody predicted.
No. While mobile click-through rates are just dropping off a cliff, and I would assume they'd both be dropping. If AI gives me the answer, why would my behavior change just because I'm sitting at a desk instead of, standing in line at a coffee shop looking at my phone?
Well, it comes down to user intent and the friction of the interface. Think about it. On a mobile device, your queries are overwhelmingly transactional or just informational on a very surface level.
Like, what's the weather or who won the game last night?
Exactly. Or how many ounces in a cup? For those queries, the AI overview is the perfect endpoint. The user gets the data instantly. They don't have to load some clunky mobile web page.
And decline the cookies.
Right. Decline cookies, scroll past 3 auto-playing video ads. The friction is just gone. But desktop usage on June 26, 2026, it indicates a totally different mode of operation.
Meaning, if I'm on my laptop, I'm probably working or researching. I'm not just looking for quick trivia.
Exactly the distinction. Desktop queries are increasingly deep. They're complex. A user might ask the AI to synthesize, say, a history of modern monetary theory.
Right.
The AI provides a great summary, sure. But a researcher actually needs to cross-reference the primary sources. They need to verify the citations, pull deeper data.
So the AI is basically acting as a sophisticated routing mechanism.
Yes, it starts the journey, but the user still clicks through to the authoritative sources. So desktop clicks are becoming hyper-concentrated, fewer total clicks overall, but the ones that do happen carry massive intent.
Massive intent. So mobile is essentially this drive-through window for instant data gratification, and desktop is a laboratory where the AI is your research assistant handing you the files you actually need to sit down and read.
A very apt comparison. However, there is a massive evolutionary pressure cooker operating in the background of all this, which the report highlights heavily.
The June 2026 spam update.
The June 2026 spam update. Google is aggressively, and I mean aggressively, penalizing thin AI-generated content.
Yeah, you cannot just use a basic prompt to spin up a generic summary of a topic and expect it to rank anymore.
Not as of June 26, 2026.
But wait, I need to push back on that a little bit.
Sure.
Google is heavily pushing their own AI to summarize the web for users, right? But they are penalizing website owners who use AI to write content. I mean, isn't that a massive double standard?
It definitely sounds contradictory on the surface, but mathematically, from an engineering standpoint, it is pure self-preservation.
How so?
It comes down to a phenomenon called model collapse.
Model collapse.
Right. Generative engines require high-quality human-generated data to train their algorithms. We call that ground truth.
Okay.
If the internet becomes entirely flooded with AI-generated summaries, and then the search engine comes along and scrapes those AI summaries to train its next generation of models, the data degrades.
Oh, I see. It's like making a photocopy of a photocopy.
And then making a photocopy of that. Eventually, it just turns into a gray, illegible blur.
Ah, so if the AI trains on its own regurgitated sludge, it literally gets dumber over time.
Exactly. Google desperately needs humans to keep publishing original, authoritative research, fresh data. Otherwise, the AI has no fresh, nutritious data to consume.
They need human seeds to grow the AI garden.
That is a poetic way to put it, yeah. Therefore, their algorithm is brutally penalizing sites that just summarize existing knowledge, and they are heavily rewarding primary sources, original data, and deep, verified expertise.
Okay, this brings me to a realization. We've talked about modern search being like a restaurant on a busy street, right?
Right.
The AI overview is the menu pasted in the window. 75% of customers walk up, look at the menu, somehow magically absorb the calories through their eyes, get completely full, and walk away without ever coming inside the restaurant.
Because of the zero-click reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if I own that restaurant, my instinct is to just stop cooking. I mean, if nobody is coming through the door to buy a meal, why am I spending all this money and effort on ingredients?
And that is the existential crisis of the digital economy on June 26, 2026. The instinct to stop cooking is completely natural, but it's fatal. The pivot you have to make, and what this report outlines so clearly, is recognizing that your primary customer is no longer the human standing on the sidewalk.
Okay, so if it isn't the human, who am I cooking for?
You are cooking for the autonomous system that writes the menu in the window.
Whoa.
Think about it. If your recipe isn't formatted perfectly for the AI to ingest, to understand, and to verify, your food doesn't even make it onto the window display. You become entirely invisible to those 75 million users.
You just don't exist.
You don't exist. And this necessitates abandoning the traditional framework of search engine optimization entirely and shifting to what the industry now calls generative engine optimization, or GEO.
GEO, Generative Engine Optimization.
Yeah.
And the report also uses the term AEO, Answer Engine Optimization.
Yes.
And I have to be honest, until very recently, I thought these were just buzzwords invented by like slick consultants trying to sell new courses online.
Oh, they definitely started that way, as most tech nomenclature does. But this report confirms their absolute mainstream legitimacy, because as of June 26, 2026, Google has officially published technical documentation outlining the protocol for optimizing websites specifically for generative AI features.
It's not a theory anymore.
No, it is the documented rulebook.
Okay, well, let's open the rulebook then. What is the fundamental difference in mechanism here? If I am a content team and I'm trying to transition from old school SEO to this new GEO framework, what am I actually changing about how I build a web page?
The foundational difference is moving away from optimizing for broad concepts and moving toward optimizing for highly complex relational queries.
Relational queries.
Right. The report actually cites benchmark data from Conductor on this, and it shows that pages targeting what they call fan-out subqueries are 161% more likely to be cited in AI overviews than pages just targeting traditional head terms.
Okay, wait. Fan-out subqueries. That sounds incredibly academic. Is this just a highly technical way of saying, we need to answer the weird, convoluted questions that people ask their phones at 2 a.m.?
It is exactly that. But there's a mathematical reason why it actually works.
Okay, explain the math.
So, a head term is broad, like best running shoes. In vector space, which we talked about earlier, that concept is incredibly crowded. Millions of documents map to that general area.
Right. Everyone has an article on the best running shoes.
Exactly. But a fan-out subquery is hyper-specific. It's like best running shoes for flat feet on a treadmill when recovering from a sprained ankle.
It's highly contextual.
Very. And when a generative engine processes a complex prompt like that, it breaks it down into multiple vectors and looks for the intersection of all those specific concepts.
And most broad content doesn't cover all those intersections.
Exactly. If your content specifically answers that convoluted 2 a.m. question, your mathematical relevance score just skyrockets. The AI literally needs your page to synthesize the final answer.
So we find the weird intersecting questions. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I imagine we can't just write a sprawling poetic essay about ankle springs and treadmills, right? How does the AI actually want the information delivered?
The AI demands structural rigidity.
Structural rigidity.
Yeah. Human readers, we can handle ambiguity, right? We can follow conversational tangents, implied context.
Sure.
Machines hate ambiguity. It costs them processing power to figure out what you actually mean. So to optimize for an answer engine, you need crystal clear hierarchical headings.
Okay.
And immediately following a heading, you must provide a direct, concise answer, usually in a single definitive paragraph. You need robust, dedicated FAQ sections. You're essentially pre-digesting the information so the AI can extract the core facts without expending computational energy trying to parse your prose.
Well, you're literally pre-chewing the food for the machine.
It sounds gross, but yes.
And speaking of making things easier for the machine, I really want to dive into a specific file mentioned in the report that I find absolutely fascinating, the llms.txt file.
Oh, this is a critical development for technical web architecture.
I want to break this down because anyone who has built a website in the last 20 years, they are very familiar with robots.txt.
Right, the classic.
Yeah, that is the plain text file that sits at the root of a domain and basically acts like a bouncer at a nightclub. It tells web crawlers, you can look at the homepage, but stay out of this private admin folder, and please don't index these duplicate search result pages. It sets boundaries.
Exactly.
So how does llms.txt differ from that legacy system?
Well, if robots.txt is the bouncer keeping bad actors out of the back rooms, llms.txt is like a highly curated tasting menu handed to a VIP food critic the moment they sit down.
I love that analogy.
It really works. It is a proposed specification designed to explicitly guide large language models to your absolute best, most factually dense content.
So instead of just saying, don't look here, you're proactively saying, hey, ignore the fluff on our blog, ignore the marketing copy. Here is the raw data, the research papers, and the definitive answers.
Precisely. You have to remember that web crawling is incredibly expensive for AI companies. Processing millions of pages requires massive server infrastructure and energy.
It's not free.
No, it's very costly. If a crawler hits your site and has to wade through 50 pages of mediocre marketing material just to find one piece of novel data, that's highly inefficient. llms.txt allows a webmaster to provide a clean, markdown formatted directory of the site's most valuable information, specifically formatted for machine ingestion.
That makes total sense from an efficiency standpoint. What is the adoption looking like, though? Are webmasters actually taking the time to do this on June 26, 2026?
As of the data in this report, adoption is hovering between 5 and 15%, among major enterprise websites.
That feels a little low, doesn't it?
It is early, but it is the fastest growing technical SEO standard right now. Because webmasters have realized that if they want the AI to cite them in a zero-click overview, they have to remove every ounce of friction. They are basically handing the AI a treasure map directly to the gold.
Okay, but let's play devil's advocate for a second. If the strategy is simply to find long-tail questions, format them with rigid headings, and put them in a VIP directory file, couldn't a spammer just use a cheap AI to generate thousands of these perfectly formatted FAQ pages and steal all the visibility?
Oh, they absolutely try. And honestly, for a brief window a couple of years ago, that tactic actually worked.
Right.
But that brings us right back to the vital context of the June 2026 spam update.
Right.
Perfect formatting is completely useless if the generative engine doesn't mathematically trust the source of the information.
Because I could write a perfectly structured, highly specific article about cardiovascular surgery, complete with bullet points and schema markup, but I am not a doctor. I have zero medical background.
Exactly.
Historically, Google looked at how many other websites linked to my article to judge if I was trustworthy. How are they judging trust now on June 26, 2026, in a way that actually defeats perfectly formatted AI spam?
They evaluate a framework known as EEAT: experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. Yes. And on June 26, 2026, this isn't just a manual review guideline for human quality raters anymore. It is woven directly into the machine learning algorithms via entity reconciliation and knowledge graphs.
Okay, unpack entity reconciliation for me, because that sounds like accounting jargon.
It does. Imagine the internet as a massive web of nodes. You, as an author, are a node, an entity.
Okay.
The search engine maps your entity against other entities. Do you have a verified medical degree from a known university entity? Have you published papers in journals that are recognized as authoritative entities? Do you have verifiable real-world experience regarding the specific topic you are writing about?
So it's looking for the connections.
Yes. If a spammer spins up an anonymous site with perfectly structured medical advice, the algorithm looks for the entity behind it. If it finds a ghost or an entity with zero connected expertise in that field, the trust score just plummets to zero.
It's essentially a digital background check. You can't just say, trust me, I'm an expert. The math has to prove your credentials across the entire digital ecosystem. And that actually brings us to the tooling section of the report, because the industry has had to invent entirely new ways to measure this trust. TechBullion just named a platform called EEATClean as the standout SEO tool of 2026.
Yes, EEATClean. It represents an entire category of software that I like to call the verifiers.
Verifiers.
Their sole purpose is to audit a domain against these very trust signals we are talking about. It ingests your content and analyzes it the exact way a generative engine would.
Looking for what, exactly?
It looks for expertise gaps, factual inaccuracies, or logical inconsistencies that might trigger a spam penalty.
Wow, so it's acting like an automated red team. It attacks your content to find the weaknesses before Google's crawler ever finds them.
That's a great way to describe it. And it specifically flags outdated information.
Why is outdated information such a big deal?
Well, think about it. If your site has an incredible, deeply researched article about tax law, right? But it was written in 2024 and hasn't been updated for 2026 regulations.
Right.
A generative engine views that as a massive liability, because if the AI cites your outdated tax law in a zero-click overview, it basically causes a hallucination that could ruin a user's finances.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
EEATClean flags that decay in real time.
Which perfectly explains the adoption data in the report. They track the usage of these auditing tools in YMYL industries.
Your money or your life.
Exactly. These are sectors like finance, law, medicine. The growth numbers for EEATClean in these sectors are just staggering. The report says legal usage is up 11.9x, finance is up 2.9x, health is up 2.9x.
A nearly 12-fold increase in the legal sector. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about the risk environment on June 26, 2026.
Because if you are a law firm, a single AI hallucination based on an outdated precedent on your website is an absolute crisis. If the AI serves bad legal advice and cites your firm as the source, the reputational damage is catastrophic.
It's existential risk mitigation at that point. But verifying the trust and factual accuracy of the words on the page is really only half the battle.
Right. What's the other half?
The AI crawler also has to be able to physically access and render those words efficiently, which ties directly into the technical health of the website. And that brings us to the 2026 update of Screaming Frog.
Oh, Screaming Frog. It is an absolute legend in the technical SEO space.
Yeah.
For years, it's been the desktop crawler that SEOs use to audit broken links, missing tags, server errors. You run it, and it just spits out this terrifying spreadsheet of everything wrong with your code.
A very familiar spreadsheet for many of us.
But the report says the 2026 version has evolved significantly. I mean, they mention a free 500 URL version and a $290 a year paid license, but the capabilities are completely different now.
It had to evolve primarily because of how websites are actually built today. Over the last decade, there has been a massive proliferation of client-side JavaScript frameworks. Developers absolutely love them because they allow for these dynamic app-like experiences right in the browser.
Right, everything is smooth and fast for the user.
But from an AI crawler's perspective, JavaScript is a nightmare.
Really? Why? I always kind of thought bots could just read anything.
It comes back to that compute cost we discussed. An AI crawler prefers raw HTML. It's lightweight, it's instantly readable, and it costs fractions of a cent to process.
Okay.
When a bot hits a page built heavily with client-side JavaScript, the content isn't actually there in the raw code. The bot has to pause, spin up a headless browser, execute the JavaScript, wait for the content to render on the virtual screen, and then take a snapshot to read it.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. That rendering process takes time and significant computational energy.
So if a search engine is crawling billions of pages a day, they definitely don't want to spend the money rendering heavy JavaScript. They might just look at the raw HTML, see a blank page, and move on.
That happens constantly. Entire sections of beautifully designed websites are completely invisible to generative engines because the JavaScript rendering cost is just too high.
Wow.
And Screaming Frog simulates this exact failure point.
Yeah.
It crawls the site, compares the raw HTML to the rendered DOM, and flags exactly where critical content is hidden behind expensive scripts. But the real genius of the 2026 update is how it translates this technical data.
Yes. The report points out that it now uses AI to estimate the actual traffic impact and the ROI of fixing these technical issues. I love this.
It's a game changer.
It really is, because historically an SEO analyst running a Screaming Frog audit would walk into a stakeholder meeting and say, you know, we have massive technical debt. Our client-side rendering is causing a 400 millisecond delay in our first contentful paint, and our DOM size is exceeding limits.
And the stakeholders' eyes immediately glaze over, and the budget for fixing it is denied.
Exactly. But if the tool uses predictive AI to translate that and say, hey, this JavaScript rendering failure means our product pages are invisible to Google's AI overview, which is costing us an estimated $60,000 a month in lost organic revenue, suddenly the CEO approves the engineering sprint.
It translates nerd speak into business speak.
Exactly. Bridging that communication gap is arguably the most valuable feature of the tool today.
And it really highlights a critical bottleneck in the industry on June 26, 2026.
What's the bottleneck?
We have tools like EEATClean, flagging thousands of pages that lack verified expertise. And we have tools like Screaming Frog, identifying thousands of technical rendering errors, identifying the problems at scale. That's solved.
But fixing them.
Exactly. Fixing them, rewriting the content to answer fan-out subqueries, updating outdated facts, rewriting code to eliminate rendering roadblocks. Doing that across an enterprise website requires a staggering amount of human labor.
It requires an army. And most marketing departments, they don't have an army. So if I'm a business facing this mountain of required updates and I can't afford to hire 50 new writers and developers, I'm looking for a way to automate it.
Naturally.
But we just established that Google's spam update will absolutely nuke my site if I use cheap automation that causes model collapse. How is the industry solving that tension right now?
By engaging in an absolute automation arms race. The report details how 2026 marks the shift from using AI as an experimental toy to deploying it as production-grade orchestration.
Production-grade orchestration.
Yes, we are seeing a massive bifurcation in the software market between two distinct groups. You have the automators, who are trying to replace the human workflow entirely, and then you have the intelligence hubs, who are using AI to make human experts radically more efficient.
Okay, let's look at the automators first. The report calls them the challengers. These are platforms like AirOps, Koala AI, and Writesonic. What are they doing differently than the basic ChatGPT prompts we were all using a couple of years ago?
The defining characteristic of a modern automator, like an AirOps, for example, is multi-model orchestration.
Meaning?
It isn't relying on a single brain. It utilizes GPT, Claude, Gemini, and localized models simultaneously within a single automated workflow.
So they are talking to each other.
Exactly. You can program a sequence where one model analyzes search data to find those fan-out subqueries we mentioned. A second model, with a totally different architecture, drafts the content. A third model acts as an adversarial critic to check for factual consistency. And a fourth model generates custom visual assets.
It's literally an autonomous factory line. And what stands out to me in the report is how platforms like Writesonic, which mentions a $249 a month pro plan, are specifically tackling the technical formatting we discussed earlier. They aren't just generating prose, they do what the report calls schema-aware long-form generation.
And this is a crucial mechanism. We mentioned earlier that AI bots need structure. And one of the most important structures is JSON-LD schema markup.
Okay, let's pause and define JSON-LD, because that is another term that gets thrown around in marketing meetings all the time. What is it, fundamentally?
Think of JSON-LD as a standardized barcode slapped on the back of a product.
A barcode, okay.
Yeah. If a human looks at a web page about a pair of running shoes, they can easily infer the price by looking for the number with a dollar sign. They can tell if it's in stock by reading the green text that says in stock, and they know the brand by the logo.
Right.
An AI crawler can try to read all that text and infer the meaning, but it's prone to errors. JSON-LD is invisible code injected into the page that explicitly states, in a standardized format, product name, shoe, price, 150, currency, USD, stock status, in stock.
It removes all the guesswork.
It removes all of it. It's handing the machine a perfectly organized spreadsheet of the facts rather than making the machine try to read the marketing brochure.
And in the past, an SEO would have to manually generate that code and inject it into the page header, right?
Yes, very tedious. But what these new automators do is they generate the article, recognize the entities within the text, and automatically write and embed the flawless JSON-LD barcodes simultaneously.
That's incredibly powerful, and Koala AI takes it even a step further by bundling everything, the writer, the chat, the image generation, and data magnets into one workspace. It handles the entire lifecycle from ideation to final publication with minimal human touch.
Which leads to a very profound philosophical question about the web we are building.
I know exactly where you were going with this. Because here's where it gets really interesting. If these automators are finding the queries, writing the highly structured content, injecting the invisible JSON-LD barcode, and publishing it.
All specifically so that Google's AI can easily crawl it.
Right. So Google can crawl it, summarize it, and present it to a human who never actually clicks on the website.
Yeah.
Aren't we just building a snake eating its own tail? It's a closed loop of machines talking to machines.
It really is.
It feels like high-frequency stock trading algorithms buying and selling from each other in milliseconds, optimizing entirely for machine behavior, pushing humans entirely out of the loop.
The high-frequency trading analogy is terrifyingly accurate. We are basically engineering content specifically to appease the parser algorithms of generative engines. However, the report outlines why the intelligence hubs, the traditional titans of the SEO industry, believe that fully autonomous loops are actually very dangerous.
Okay, let's talk about the titans. We're looking at platforms like Semrush, SEO Ranking, and ARIFs. These are the dashboards that every single SEO professional has had open on their monitor for the last decade. They aren't trying to build autonomous factories, are they? They are building copilots.
Exactly. Take Semrush, for example. Their massive 2026 rollout focuses heavily on an AI copilot. They recognize that human strategic oversight is the ultimate circuit breaker against those spam update penalties we talked about.
So it's not replacing the human.
No, instead of writing the content for you blindly, the copilot acts like a senior data analyst sitting beside you. It monitors millions of data points, interprets the analytics, spots anomalies, and suggests highly specific actions for a human expert to then execute.
The report specifically highlights Semrush's AI overview tracker, which, honestly, looking at the pricing, like the $119 Pro plan, it feels like a mandatory tool right now. Because if 75% of searches result in 0 clicks, your traditional web analytics might show 0 traffic, making it look like your brand is just dead.
Right, the flat line you mentioned at the start of the deep dive.
Exactly. But the AI overview tracker monitors the actual generative summaries across the web to tell you, hey, you didn't get any clicks, but your brand was cited as the definitive source in 50,000 AI responses today.
It measures visibility in the invisible layer. We have had to invent entirely new metrics for a zero-click world.
And it's not just Google, right?
No. SE Ranking has also released a very powerful AI overview tracker. I think their core plan is around $129 a month, and it monitors visibility across Google, Bing, and Yahoo simultaneously, which proves that this isn't just a Google phenomenon, it's industry-wide.
And then there's ARIFs. Historically, they've been known for analyzing the connective tissue of the web, backlinks. Their $99 light plan now includes AI content helper and backlink anomaly detection,
The anomaly detection is key.
meaning the AI spots when a sudden, unnatural spike of links points to your site, which might be a competitor trying to trigger a spam penalty against you, and it alerts you before the damage is done.
It's doing the heavy lifting of pattern recognition, but leaving the tactical decisions to the human.
So we have the automators pushing for autonomous scale and the intelligence hubs pushing for augmented human verification. It's quite the clash of philosophies.
It is, but both of these technological philosophies are ultimately reacting to the final and perhaps most disruptive section of this June 26th, 2026 report.
Yes, Section 8, the next frontier. We've talked about AI answering questions for humans. We've talked about machines optimizing content for machines. But Section 8 introduces a concept that completely redefines the end user: Agentic Discovery.
This is the frontier. Up until now, our entire conversation has assumed that a human being is still initiating the search and reading the final AI summary. Agentic Discovery removes the human from the active process entirely.
Completely
We are witnessing the mass deployment of autonomous AI agents that take action on behalf of the user.
Let's paint a picture of how this actually functions for a consumer on June 26, 2026. Because it sounds like sci-fi, but it's happening right now. Instead of a human pulling out their phone, searching for shoes, reading reviews, and entering their credit card, what does the agentic workflow actually look like?
Well, a user delegates the intent. They tell their personal AI agent, I am starting physical therapy next week. Find me the best running shoes for flat feet, ensuring they are under $150. Check if they are currently in stock in a size 10 at any brick-and-mortar store within a 5-mile radius of my house. If they have a hassle-free free return policy, use my stored payment credentials to purchase them for pickup tomorrow.
No.
And then the human just walks away. The agent executes the entire sequence.
It is a relentless, highly efficient personal shopper.
It is.
But here is the critical connection back to everything we've discussed today. This personal shopper does not have eyes. It does not look at the beautiful hero images on your website. It does not read the persuasive marketing copy your agency spent weeks writing. It operates purely at the data layer.
It communicates exclusively in code. When the autonomous agent hits a retailer's website, it is looking for API endpoints and JSON LD structured data. It needs a rigid mathematical guarantee of the price, the real-time inventory status, and the return policy parameters.
So if your store has the shoes in stock and they are the perfect price, but your developer didn't properly inject that JSON LD barcode we talked about earlier, the AI agent literally cannot see your inventory.
You are blind to it.
You are invisible to the machine, which means you lose the sale to a competitor who simply had better structured data.
You lose the sale without ever knowing you were considered. And the scale of this is no longer speculative. The report cites a 2026 AI trend study by Tinuiti, which reveals that 34% of U.S. adults are already using AI platforms on a daily basis.
Over a third.
And another 21% are using them weekly. The infrastructure of daily commerce is being handed over to autonomous agents as we speak.
But delegating that much power to machines, that has to come with immense risk. The report notes a recent warning from Google DeepMind specifically regarding the large-scale deployment of these agents.
The safety concerns are profound. When you grant autonomous agents the agency to execute contracts, make financial transactions, or aggregate critical research without human intervention, the attack vectors multiply exponentially.
Right. What is DeepMind specifically warning about?
They are warning about cascading errors, where one agent misinterprets bad data, takes an action, and triggers a chain reaction of automated responses across other systems. There is also the threat of malicious exploitation.
Spammers again?
Always. Bad actors manipulating the structured data specifically to trick consumer agents into fraudulent purchases. It is a highly volatile environment right now.
Which brings this entire deep dive full circle. Because this massive risk factor is exactly why generative engines and AI agents are so completely obsessed with trust signals on June 26, 2026.
Exactly.
This is why the llms.txt file is essential. It guarantees the agent is reading the verified source material. This is why EEATClean audits are exploding in the finance and health sectors, because an autonomous agent executing a stock trade based on a hallucination is a complete disaster.
The machines require mathematically verifiable trust because they lack human intuition. A human can look at a sketchy website and immediately feel that it's a scam.
The design is weird, the fonts are off.
Right, you just know. But an AI agent doesn't feel anything. It relies 100% on EAT scores, entity reconciliation, and clean, structured data to make decisions.
Yeah.
If you don't provide those signals clearly, the agent defaults to caution and ignores you entirely.
So let's step back and look at the landscape of the internet on this exact day, June 26, 2026. The shift is just staggering. We are living in a reality where 75% of searches result in 0 clicks. The traditional funnel is dead.
Completely.
We've seen the formalization of generative engine optimization, forcing content teams to pre-digest information and answer highly specific fan-out queries. We've explored the necessity of EEAT auditing tools to mathematically prove our expertise to algorithms. We've watched the software industry bifurcate between automators building machine-to-machine closed loops and intelligence hubs acting as human co-pilots.
And finally, navigating the dawn of agentic discovery, where bots are doing the actual buying.
It is a phenomenal amount of technical and behavioral change to process.
It is. But for the listener trying to adapt their business or their career to this new reality, the core philosophy of success remains surprisingly consistent.
Really? How so?
Well, knowledge is most valuable when it is understood and applied. The immediate application of this report is that your digital presence must become fluent in the language of AI. You must provide genuine, verifiable human expertise, and you must wrap that expertise in the rigid technical architecture, the llms.txt, the JSON LD, the clean headings that the machines require.
It all comes back to the restaurant analogy. You still have to cook the absolute best, most nutritious food in the neighborhood, but you have to format the recipe perfectly for the automated menu in the window, or no one will ever know you exist.
Exactly. You have to speak the machine's language.
It's a brave new world out there. But as we wrap up this analysis of the June 26, 2026 web ecosystem, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final lingering thought to mull over. We've talked about a web where machines summarize content for humans, and increasingly where autonomous agents do the researching and buying on our behalf.
Right.
If we continue on this trajectory, optimizing purely for machine consumption, at what point does human-to-human internet commerce, the act of a person browsing a beautifully designed website to buy something from another person, cease to be the foundation of the digital economy and simply become a quaint vintage hobby?
That is a very provocative question, and honestly one that will likely define the next iteration of the web.
Something to think about next time you let your personal agent buy your shoes.
Yeah.
Until next time.